Hi, and welcome back. Oh my gosh, today is hot, hot, hot. And I don't know how I'm going to get through this day, but I am excited for this day because today I am going to show you everything that I do to take care of my garden before heading off on vacation. Now, I have a lot of things on my list, and that is where I start, is writing a list of things that I got to do. So if you're new to my channel, my name is Juanita. I'm with J Excursions. Thank you for joining me, and welcome. Now, everything that I do, I try to take care of 2 weeks in advance, because the last thing I want to do is walk out going, what did I not take care of? So, with that, you guys, let's get started. Now, my hydrangea over here has been whimpering, and so I'm going to top some of the flowers as much as it's going to kill me to do that, but I want the foliage to concentrate on coming back to life. So I'm going to also give it some fish emollients to see if that'll perk it back up. I just watered it, so it should be okay, but I'm going to show you where to trim it if you have an issue like this. But do you see how the leaves are kind of whimpering? When it's whimpering like this, look at your flower, and if it is looking kind of drab, then cut it off. But like this one here is kind of whimpering. Do you see how that's kind of just not really up to life? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it right, just because there's a leaf coming up right there. So I don't want to cut that off. So I'm just going to snip right above that. And then see this one, how it's whimpering? This one, same thing. I'm just going to snip off the flower. This way, it'll encourage more flowers like this. Now, something that you can do is maybe do some bone meal to encourage more of the root growth. You could just give it a good watering, making sure that that's going to be what it needed. I haven't fertilized in a while, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a little bit of fertilizer and see if that won't help, and it'll also encourage more flower growth. And I'm not going to give it a lot. I'm only putting very little fertilizer on it. And I'm just going to do it around the perimeter of the plant, not necessarily in the center of it. So doesn't that look so much better? One thing, if you're not familiar with elderberries, is that you can literally cut these down to about here or to where the last node is down there. And it'll still bring out some foliage. So elderberry, lace elderberries specifically, they are very, very forgiving trees. So I absolutely love it for that reason. And it's going to allow all my plants down here to gain a lot more sunlight. If you notice, my Coreopsis caught a goal here. One side is blooming and the other half is not, and that's because it wasn't getting any sunlight. So now, all these little buds that are forming over in this side have the chance to bloom, and that whole thing is going to look much, much better than it was before. So I'm really happy that I did it, and I do it every year, so I know that it'll do just as beautifully next spring. So now that I trimmed everything in the backyard, I'm going to fix my irrigation system. I already set it up, but as you can see, the ground is all wet, so it's overflowing it and not watering every one of my plants. So I'm going to make sure that my garden over here is properly set up for irrigation where it's not creating a mess. So right now my irrigation system over here is on these little bubblers, which is great because it covers quite a bit of area. However, it's really too much for this garden because these containers are porous, and so it gets oversaturated. And so that's what I'm going to be changing out, is all of these little bubblers that I have here. Now this one here, I have a bubbler here, one right here, and one right here. However, this part of my garden in the front is not getting water, but it's getting saturated down here. So I need to evenly distribute the water across. This is why I choose the process of getting my garden prepped for me to leave, because there's always something that may go wrong. And if I'm not here to fix it, it could be a disaster. So that's what I'm gonna do next, is I'm gonna fix my irrigation system over here and put it in a different type of drip system. So the equipment that I'm gonna use to take those drippers off is I'm going to use this type of a dripper, because this will slowly do a release evenly. Or I can use a 6-inch meter hose over here. Now I'm gonna go ahead and choose to use the soaker hose and distribute the water evenly and enough for 1 hour. I think it should be enough, because everything here outside of maybe the tomato plants don't need a lot of water. I mean, they need water, but they're very shallow rooted, so I don't need a whole lot. Okay, so what I did for my tomatoes is that I switched out those little bubblers, and then I changed it for this 1/4-inch meter hose. It has meter or drip meters every 6 inch, and then I closed it at the end with a little zip tie, and I just kind of swirled it around. My peppers have grown from when I did my last video, and on here what I did is that I just put a ring around this. And this is just that little 1/4-inch soaker hoses. I find that these work fantastic. Then over here, what I did is I traded out all those bubblers. I had bubblers in every row. And instead, I just traded it off again with just this 1/4-inch soaker hose. And I just twirled it around every plant and just made sure that every one of these were completely close to the roots and next to the plants. I added this to kind of keep my arugula away from my lettuce. And then for this container, what I did is that I took out all the drip meters again, all those little bubblers. I had three of them, or in each row, and then I just took out and connected there, and then I put it right next to the root. My lettuce, I did it right down below, and I kind of like circled it around, and so I have one next to this side, one next to this side. It's just like a little irrigation system here going on, and then I just kind of twirled it around, and it looks really great. With my tomato plant here, again, I did that 6-inch meter drip hose over here. And then for every plant over here, I just used, again, the soaker hoses. Now that all the irrigation's in place, I tested it overnight, so I know it's working properly. I know that all my plants are getting water to each individual plant, and it's all being consistent, and I'm not having a riverfront over in my yard over here. Now I can see that there is a little bit of moisture in the ground, but all these containers are porous, so you know there is going to be moisture, but at least I'm not wasting water while I'm gone. I'm not in standing water anymore. And I know that when I come back from vacation, that my vegetables are going to be alive and ready to harvest when I get back. Now, the only reason I am showing you my vegetable garden over here and what I did for it is because lettuce over here is very sensitive, it's very delicate, and we have those plants amongst our gardens. And some require a little bit more moisture than others, like my broomstick hydrangea. It needs a little bit more water than a lot of the other surrounding plants. So because of that, that's why I'm showing you this, because it's some more delicate. And if I can get this right, I know I can get all my other plants right. So that's why I'm showing you. But with that being said, you guys, stick around to the very end, because I'm going to show you some tips what you can do to water your plants when you go away if you don't have an irrigation system set up. So let's go look at my broomstick, see how that's doing. And then I also want to deadhead a couple of flowering shrubs. So let's go on to the next task, and that's checking that out. So now you can see how beautiful this looks. Every leaf is standing up. Now I may still kind of deadhead, some of this right here, these flowers, but again, I'm only going to cut the very tips of them off, just the flower head, nothing else, because even though this will bloom from new wood as well as old wood, I want to encourage other blooms without sacrificing that. So the only thing left to do is maybe cut off some of these dried up flowers, but it's not a must. But it looks happy, so now I can leave on vacation knowing that this is going to be okay. Now this particular hydrangea requires a little bit more moisture than any of the surrounding plants. But because I have it in the same irrigation system that all of my other plants are on, it's on the same irrigation line, let me put it that way. I actually have a ring around this hydrangea so that it can get the proper moisture that it requires, and that is the irrigation with the 6-inch drip meters on it. So this is what I did over here. I added a little bit of coconut coir around the base, and then I added this soaker hose, and you can see that it's getting moisture. I don't even have to dip my finger. It's getting the proper moisture. So I'm really, really happy with that. But having a little bit of top soil, maybe some mulch, or even this coconut coir around the base actually helps with retaining that moisture as well. So outside of this hydrangea over here, everything else is pretty tolerable to drought, so I'm not worried about leaving them. However, they are all set up with 1/4-inch soaker hoses. I just wanted to point that out. As far as my lawn over here, now lawns may not be your priority, but I like having my lawn looking at least half-ass decent, especially on hot summer days, and I don't want to come back to a dead, grass over here. What I do for my lawn is I just connect the hose onto my sprinkler. So if you don't have a sprinkler system or an irrigation system for your lawn, this is something, and I don't. So this is what I do, is I connect the sprinkler, I set it down on the ground, and then I have this set up on the same timer for it to go off in the morning and at night, but only every other day or every third day. I'm not sure how I'm going to set that up correctly, but this doesn't need to be watered every day. I love this lawn. I will talk more about this lawn if you guys are interested in that. But I love this particular lawn because it doesn't dry out really fast, and so this can get away with even hot weather for a week and it'll be fine. So I will probably set it up just to go off once a week, maybe twice a day, in the morning and at night. So now let's go deadhead a couple of my flowering shrubs that I know that need to be, and and then I'll walk you through my garden and show you a little bit about that, and then we'll wrap this up and I will give you the tips on how you can water very inexpensively. So this area here is kind of around my shade garden, and because we are still kind of in the morning light, I want to make sure that this is deadheaded before the sun starts reaching over in this area, because this can be a very heat zone area from here all the way to the front, so it's creeping. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Now this is not a necessity to deadhead this flowers, but for me to come back and have more encouraged flowers when I get back, I want to get rid of all this stuff and any blooms that look like they're on their way out. I'm going to be getting rid of that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll deadhead my bishop dahlia and take care of my lilies, and that should be good to go. Okay, so now you can see that my lilies are all taken care of and they're looking so much better. My bishop dahlia is doing fantastic, and so is everything over here. All of my red valerian is all pruned on each individual container over here, and yeah. So on this side, I'm just going to deadhead this really quick. So up here, I have 3 containers. I have this one over here. This is my self-watering container that I created, I think, last season. I can fill up the reservoir on that, and it'll be good for nearly 2 months. So this one here is the least of my worries, but I will make sure that it's got plenty of water. These 2 are on the same drip system that this side of my garden and my vegetable garden, as well as all the containers that are in front of both the small pergola and the large pergola are on. So these will get watered daily, but these ones here are on a 1/4 inch soaker hose, so they just get enough moisture for them to survive. But if I didn't have that in place, which I have done for many years, is that I get these watering trays or drip trays, and they're about 2 inches deep. So I just fill those things up with water, and they're good to go for at least a couple of weeks. So I'm not too worried about them, even if I didn't have irrigation on them. Now, there's other methods that you can do to self-water your containers, or any plant for that matter. So let's go sit in the small pergola, and I'm going to go over some tips on how you can water if you don't have an irrigation system set on. So let's go over there. Before I do that, let me take you really quick through here. Okay, so on this side, let me just give you a quick walkabout because I really didn't do anything here other than deadhead my red valerian. As you saw, I did take off kind of the dried stems off of, or the dead stems off of the daylilies, but those are done blooming. This ones don't bloom all summer. This one's, once they bloom, they're done. But you can encourage daylilies to bloom by, clipping that dead flower stem. And this is my, I believe this is my tiger lily or spider lily. I can't remember, I'll put the name down. But this one is in bloom now. It's absolutely beautiful. It's too bad that nothing else is in bloom. But of course my red valerian is. And every now and then I will get still some daylily flowers over here. And these will start blooming again. So I'm not worried about that. And my hot lip salvia is coming back to bloom. It's going on a second flush of blooming. And this is another hot lips, and it's going to start blooming. These are right now in the sun, but they do get afternoon shade, and that's why they're in kind of more of a dwarf than as big as they can get. And you may have noticed this new plant right here. If you notice this is a tree peony. And I don't really know anything about peonies because I don't have any in my yard. Never have grown them. I do know that they like direct sunlight. However, this one was more in shade with some afternoon sun like it's getting right now. And so I put it over here because I thought this would be a great placement so that it didn't go into shock. And it is absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait for it to bloom next spring because this is a spring bloomer. But yeah, this is a tree peony, and I am going to show you what that seed pod looks like. Look at that. Isn't that just absolutely gorgeous? The flowers on this are supposed to be very large. So I'm excited to show you what that looks like next spring. This is how much I did today, you guys. Quite a bit. And thank God that the recycle will be here right before we leave. So I'll have an empty container when I get back. Okay, let's go have a chat. Oh my gosh, it feels good to sit down. It feels good to have everything taken care of. And now I can take off on vacation. So let's talk about what to do if you didn't have an irrigation system set up. And to be honest with you guys, I just set my irrigation system up last year. And it was late in the summer because I wanted to make sure that everything was watered properly while I was gone. And I didn't have somebody come over and have to water for me because this is a lot of plants that I have. I have had people do it in the past, and so if you do have to have that happen, that is a great way to have somebody take care of your garden while you're away. I would just highly suggest to maybe record yourself. I've known people to do that, where they record how long it takes for specific plants, if not all their plants, and then they hand over the video over to whoever's coming over so that they know how to water your plants. For the most part, my vegetable garden and just maybe a handful of plants require a little bit more moisture than others, but I tend to gravitate towards a lot of plants that are drought tolerant. And the reason for that is because I want to be able to take off and know that I can come back and my plants are going to be watered and taken care of while I'm gone. Now, this year, I'm going to Costa Rica for 16 days, and I'm taking my son and my grandson. So, this is why I'm even doing a little bit more and making sure that everything is properly taken care of, because now I have less people to come over and help me out. Now, I know that I can come home and take a vacation from my vacation before I start my next project. So just a quick note that when I'm gone, that I will still continue to be posting videos. There's some already in the queue, so you will be up to date with everything that I've been doing. And there's some really great projects that I've done, so stay tuned for those because they're pretty good. I like them. And so anyway, that being said, let's talk about how you can irrigate and how I irrigated my garden while I was gone when I didn't have my irrigation system. So Home Depot, Amazon, very accessible places that you can buy items for very little money. Every house has at least one, if not two, outside faucets. We have two of them. This is what I've done. I have gotten a timer, put it at the end of my faucet. You do want to put a backflow and a pressure regulator on it, but you connect your timer, your pressure regulator, and then your filter. If you want to put a filter, you don't even have to go to that degree because I don't have any. and then your pressure regulator. Hook it up to this afterwards. With this or this, which this one is even better because it gives you a lot more ways to irrigate. I would then connect, and you can buy hoses that are really flexible on Amazon for like $19. This one was a little bit more spendy. I got it at Home Depot, but I love them because you can buy them at 150 feet, so they will extend for a long area. And so what I do with this is that I just, now this end here is where I hand water. It's got my faucet, but the end of your regular hose, which has the male part, I think it's the male, this is the female part. You'd connect it here, and then you would just connect your hoses here, drag them to wherever your garden is, whether it's a raised garden bed, your vegetable garden bed, and then at the end of your faucet, which would be this end, which is your male. I don't know what Home Depot has them for, but I usually go to Amazon, and they come in about 100 to 150 feet. And so in that case, you connect your hose at the end of this. So you're connecting this part of your hose, the female side, to this, which your timer's above that. Then you get your soaker hose. Once you drag this out to your garden bed, then you've got your soaker hose, and you can connect 4 different hoses. And so then you've got rows that you can water your flowers, your vegetables, or whatever it is that you want. You can either use that, or you could use a 2-hose thing. Now this here comes in about 150 or 100 feet, but if you don't need that much, just snip off the bottom part of it, this part of it, and just fold it over, put a zip tie on it or a wire, and keep it shut, and then you're good to go. Other ways that you can water your raised beds or even your ground plants is that you can add a little bit of vermiculite to the base of your plants. You can get this in Amazon. Little goes a long way. This would be great for containers because it'll retain moisture. You can put peat moss around in your containers. You can add mulch on top of your pipes that are like this, or you can add it to the top of your plants. That will retain, then give them a good soaking water, and that'll retain some moisture. You could use, and again, you can get this in Amazon. You can get blocks like this. This is coconut coir, and there's quite a bit here that will go a long, long ways. Now what I did for my vegetable garden, just to take it one step further, because those are more delicate, is that I just took one of these bricks of coconut coir, soaked it in water, and waited for it to all break down, and then I put it around the top part of my plant to cover any irrigation hoses, and then I added mulch over that. That might be a little excessive, but at least I know that all of that moisture is going to be retained throughout the day, especially if we get a heat wave like 110, because Oregon is not, or Portland, Oregon is not used to that type of weather, and the plants around Zone 8B can't handle that type of heat. So by keeping them hydrated, they can tolerate that heat. And so doing that, even in your plants around your yard, and sprinkling some of this, it is a lifesaver. So that's what I would suggest. I wouldn't suggest put peat moss on the ground because it's not environmentally healthy, but you can put it like on top of your container gardening, any container plant that you have, you can add some of this and that'll help retain moisture. The other thing that you can do, they make globes like this. They come in an array of color. You can buy them in Amazon fairly cheap. You fill this up through here. You fill it up with water, and then you turn it around and you dig it into the soil, and this will help water your plants while you're gone. Now this is also a really great way to do for indoor houseplants, as well as the peat moth and the vermiculite. You can even add that to your indoor houseplants or even the coconut coir. Then you've got not only your inside plants taken care of, but your outside plants as well. Now the only thing about these globes is that you don't want to put them where they're exposed to the heat, because then it's going to defeat the purpose of using this, because the water is just going to evaporate. But it still helps. Now Amazon also has these terracotta spigots, and then just throw a water bottle over it and use that as your irrigation. That will work for even in your house plants. They also have these other ones that have a little, like a little faucet that you can regulate the water on it, and then screw on a water bottle over that. Those you can use on your outdoor plants, your garden, your raised garden plants, or even containers. That would be ideal for that. So there's different methods that you can use. And then again, you can buy and get trays like this, and then fill this up with water, whether it's inside your home or out in your patio underneath your containers. You can add water to this, and then they'll bottom feed. And same thing with this. A lot of times with my household plants, what I will do, typically I will water them really thoroughly when I'm even leaving for 16 days, and then they're good to go. But a lot of my plants in my house are succulents. I don't believe in high maintenance plants, although I do have like lilies that are high maintenance. I think those are kind of, I have a love-hate relationship with them, because they can be a little bit more maintenance than other plants, but they're still beautiful. But in my house, I do have a lot of orchids, but orchids retain a lot of moisture, and they will survive for 2 weeks after giving them a good drink of water before I leave. But let's just say you have some that require more moisture. Put them in a tray, fill this up with water, and you're good to go. Or again, you could add a watering method such as this, or the little spigots that you tie in a little water bottle on top of it, and then that will work as well. So yeah, there's different ways, and I hope that I was able to at least give you some ideas as to how you can water very easy, very inexpensive, if you don't have an irrigation system set up. And then again, on the lawn, like I mentioned, you can do the same thing by putting that on a timer, and then you've got your lawn watered. So okay, you guys, that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that I was able to give you some tips and tricks of how you can water if you don't have an irrigation system in place, not only for inside your home, but also for outside. And yeah, and most of all, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. So with that, you guys, if you really enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. It really helps me out on my channel. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and that notification button so you catch me on all my videos. Okay, you guys, love you guys, and I'll see you guys on my next one.